Good afternoon from my side. I welcome you in the last session summary, which we will have in this workshop. It's a pleasure to have the speakers today, and we will start the afternoon session with short session summary on 2 sessions which we had some time ago. So the first speaker will be Gerhard Goldbeck. He will present briefly the session on ontology engineering in material science. In addition, Martin will say some words and add comments to Gerhard. So Gerhard, I do not see you now. He disappeared.
It's because he's an attendee. I think we have to bring him up the stage.
Aha, okay, yes, that's true.
No, he's a speaker.
Exactly. Yes. Yes, please, we start with ontology engineering in material science, and you will present.
Yeah, thank you very much. I attended the session that was chaired by Martin Horsch, and as we can see here, the speakers, we had 3 speakers that develop material science ontologies in different institutions, different projects, different contexts, and also the tools around them. And so this was really a very, very useful session from that perspective as well, to see the experiences. The first presenter, Alexandru Todor, also with Thomas Hanke, Fraunhofer, looked at the collaborative ontology development in material sciences, and there's some really great developments in there, sort of a MATO lab. The challenges in materials in particular needs to present or capture the entire process of the material development to be useful. It's also very interdisciplinary, and there is a lot of challenges in terms of the tooling or not available tooling that enables the collaborative development, especially for non-experts. But also it was great, the advances that have been made by, for example, the matportal.org, which is a bioportal type of functionality now available for the material science community due to their work. Some very interesting things around the collaborative visual ontology development using a combination of Draw.io and Chalk. But could also be done with other tools such as Visio. So this is a way of actually getting involved, and then also a whole pipeline that ends up with an actual ontology. Then around the ontology stack itself, they're using the Common Core ontologies and developed within the IOF type of framework, material science and engineering ontology as a kind of module. And then on the pipeline for transformations, there was some great developments there as well. So a great overview in terms of the sort of challenges and also starting to address some of these challenges. Then we went more into the applications in the presentation by Simon Clark in the battery interface field with some obviously very, very pertinent topic. And here an example where where they're facing these inconsistencies in terminologies. There's just sort of a screenshot here from some of the dictionaries that are available, and there is a lot of work in terms of establishing vocabulary standards and unique descriptors and the tooling around that, and to get the community together in terms of cross projects, and then also going all the way to machine readable and data management plans across projects to enable that. So this community collaboration challenge comes up back again and again. And of course FAIR, and then they're publishing a community-driven ontology in this field very soon on GitHub. Then we're going into the catalysis area from the NFDI for CAT project presented by Alexander Baer, the ontology developments there, where they again presented something very interesting in terms of reminding ourselves that, of course, ontology is at the highest step of the semantic staircase, starting from lists and so on. And I think I found it very interesting here that they've chosen sort of a middle step, the SCOS as a first target for thesaurus, and linked open vocabulary graphs for then metadata standards and knowledge graphs. So working their way up the steps, and also again work on tooling, which kind of tied in with the Voc Excel as a template for domain experts for shared vocabulary development, automating SCOS generation, and so on. And then a very nice example on workflow analysis of existing workflows that the ontology development on the basis of experimental trials and lab data. That then make all the way around to the reasoning, and we then also discussed validation and so on. So the discussion then also focuses on with many questions around these same type of stories around the ecosystem, and where we can use existing facilities such as the portal technologies, like Matportal. The RDA was mentioned as a kind of a global convener. There's the materials interest group, which is kind of being more active and more global again. There's also the chemistry interest group. In terms of TLOs, the wish is more documentation is needed to enable kind of more mid-experts, people who have only recent expertise. They really need more training, more documentation, and a strong modular development needed that then ties in with current engineering development, such as product lifecycle as well. All of that then helps, of course, in making data fair and and supporting validation. Then there was a bit of a discussion about the architecture stack in terms of triple stores as well. So I think in terms of the things that we had set out in terms of the session, what is missing with respect to requirements, there was a lot of that discussion, and we will that I've already mentioned, the challenges and needs. And also improving interoperability, and then the domain ontology development, where ontology here should really stand for everything on the ontology staircase. I think that became clear, and also the tooling around that to work in an interdisciplinary fashion. There were some things on, obviously on the exploitation, also around the batteries, etc. So I think we captured most of these, which will obviously be part of our future reports. And Martin, if you have anything you would like to add, please go ahead. These were just some quick notes.
Thank you. Yes, I think it was a very interesting session, and we have had contributions on 3 projects that are at different stages of the development and have a different scope. And that has shown us how urgently we need something like Ontology Commons, how important it is, because we need to engage all these initiatives in continuous conversations so that they don't diverge. And Ontology Commons is one way of getting this done. I think of the national research data infrastructure in Germany as something really major that is happening at a national level, and similarly, the Fraunhofer work is already very advanced, and we must make sure that this is properly transported to the European and international level. And finally, I particularly remember the important question that was brought up by Emanuele. Emanuele asked, what is the one thing that top-level ontology developers can do to support uptake at the domain level? And the answer was documenting. Document the top-level ontologies the best you can.
Thanks a lot, Martin and Gerhard. We are coming then to the second session. It's use cases for innovative ontology applications, and Michela Magas will report us briefly on the outcomes. I
Hello, everyone. I will see if I can share. I can't actually share the PowerPoint slides. I think they need to be exported as a PDF. So if you just allow
No,
me,
you can do it. If you have PowerPoint, you can share PowerPoint.
It says select PDF file or share screen. So this means share
screen.
Share screen would be like the entire screen, I suspect. Then you will probably see this menu window. I will try. So yeah, okay, share screen is fine. Right. That does it shows the whole entire screen, you see.
Screen 2.
We still do not see anything.
Yeah, 1 second. I was just trying to adjust so that you don't actually end up seeing anything but what you should be seeing. So bear with me, and then we'll do it like this. That should be fine.
We see it. Yes.
So this was the title of the session, and the objective of this was to incentivize the creation and use of ontologies in various domains that they're currently not used, and where this can add value. The session explored several different domains. Of course, following on our keynote, also with the Interarchia systems in global furniture manufacturing and distribution, but also in sound for electric and self-driving vehicles, in skills and competence frameworks, and in the areas of commoning and consensus, which are of course essential to Ontology Commons. And in the area of accessibility, in particular, in this case, we were looking at accessible musical instruments with all of their categories and parameters, and also the cultural meanings that are attached to those. The speakers were Fredrik Folkestad, who's Senior Sound Design Lead at Scania Volkswagen Group, Simon Grant from the P2P Foundation, Tim Yates, who's Accessibility Designer and founder of the Acoustic platform, and Katarina Karray, who's a lead ontologist from the Interarchia systems. Their individual presentations, we ran this as a panel session because we wanted to leave it open to discussion, and also we wanted to be free to investigate potential innovation routes. This was helped along by individual smaller presentations, so there weren't like flash talks, but the panelists showed elaborated on individual use cases. So the first use case that we looked at was in sound design for electric and self-driving vehicles, and all aspects and parameters that need to be taken in consideration, or at least snapshot of some of those parameters rather, was included in the presentation by Fredrik Folkestad, and these included considerations that ranged from physical properties of sound and how sound travels in public spaces, to how sound is perceived, interpreted, both in terms of the physical interpretation of sound, as well as the cultural interpretation of sound, and then all of the safety considerations, all of the practical considerations, and implementation considerations. So there's very, very many. It's a huge field, and there are very, very many aspects to this. And what is particularly notable about this is that in this field, which is really growing, not only is it having to design a new system for understanding, which will benefit from ontologies, for implementation of ontologies, but also it can inform how we construct an ontology ecosystem, because it has that broad range of new meanings that need to be constructed. And this is relevant not only for the vehicle, for automotive industry, but also with the growth of IoT devices and with the growth of digital twins. This area actually starts to apply to every device that needs to signal and needs to create meaning in the digital twin. Simon Grant presented his views and his experience on working with consensus as a physics and philosophy graduate from Oxford, and 30 years ago having created a cognitive science, artificial intelligence, human-computer interaction PhD. So very, very a strong background, data background and philosophy background to be tackling ontologies, but also his whole career has been focusing on even standardization of consensus, for instance, in skills and knowledge frameworks, in Quakerism, in the commons, in worker cooperatives, etc. So he actually talked us through some of the parameters that are important for the commons, because of course this entire week has been about Ontocommons, about creating an ecosystem for the Ontocommons, and ontologies have been center stage, but the commons perhaps less so. And so he focused very much on how we enable, how we learn, and how we develop more knowledge about the commons. Then Tim Yates elaborated on the use case from the accessibility, and particularly on representation. And we actually built upon the slide that was shown earlier by Peter Murray Rust, which showed how the meaning of ontologies, or rather the ontologies, can actually really affect as an enabler or create a barrier, with the example of transgender having been as a category of, as a diagnosis, having been deprecated as a diagnosis by the Danish government in 2017. So the Danish government was the first to stop transgender being a diagnosis, and therefore completely changing the paradigm and obviously creating a new paradigm for inclusion with this. And we built upon that with the idea of ability, because with the onset of digital technologies, we now have a total paradigm shift in terms of redefining ability, because most disability was physical disability was previously categorized according to the tools of production that were available. So if one wasn't able to see a lever, or if one wasn't able to move a lever or see a button, for instance, they would be categorized as disabled. And new technologies, very cheap technologies, tangible user interfaces that we can create now for people who were previously been defined with disabilities, prove that we can now actually create new categories of ability, and in fact even identify new talents, as in the example that before there was a piano, you couldn't have had a pianist, and before there was a racing car, you couldn't have a racing driver. Therefore, the new tools that we are designing that are very cheap and digital tools are enabling us with new abilities. And Katarina Karray, of course, continued on her excellent keynote, talking about the enterprise knowledge graph, and also about the what we can learn from each other, from these other disciplines, and connect to this. Just to we started with some generic questions. So which domains present new challenges, and which particular use cases? I just described a few. Which barriers exist, and of course the barriers are very much coming from humans, and also from preconceived ideas, biases, perhaps cultures that are too ingrained and that are too rigid. But also we questioned whether machines really cannot deal with ambiguities, and And is it true that people cannot find common ground? And is it just about how we design systems? We mentioned a great deal interfaces in this sense, and so I will amplify the questions because there are a great deal more questions. But of course, we had 3 minutes to compile this. And from an ecosystemic perspective, how can machines deal with the dynamics of human agency? And so we were discussing how can people see themselves in them. And then just to summarize some of the findings, but there are more, and I really encourage anybody who hasn't seen the session to actually watch it, because it was an open session. It had a huge amount of different touch points with lots of people's research this week. So basically, a very interesting sentence, which is the idea that the ontologies, to consider the ontologies as mechanics of an it depends network. And this coming from the idea that whenever you ask someone about how does this relate to that, and people will say, well, it depends. Also, because of the paradigm shift that's triggered by both digitization, so converting analog into digital, and digitalization, how do we then use it in the business processes? Several domains are now addressing new frontiers of understanding, and certain domains and use cases require design of whole new systems of understanding and completely new vocabularies, for instance, as it has been shown in sound design for electric and self-driving vehicles. But also that the success of Ontocommons relies on developing knowledge both about ontologies and about the commons. Because they do actually, the ecosystem, the Ontocommons ecosystem, relies on both. Other aspects where we mentioned bias, we were discussing radical inclusion, which is starting from where we converge and not starting from categories of people. So this offers a new mental model for building, and ontologies are a mental model, or a reflection of a mental model. And then tools are incredibly important. So not only visualization tools, which were mentioned during our session once again, and in previous workshops by Ontocommons were voted as one of the most important things. No, actually the most important tool would be visualization for ontologies. So not only visualization tools, but also tools that help us change the affordances and that redefine ability. And those, of course, are now extremely cheap. We're not talking about hugely expensive mechanization, but we're talking about cheap digital tools that allow us to create new categories of ability. And of course, hands-on approaches are needed to experience the effects of ontologies on human and human-machine exchanges. And of course, this is hugely important for us then to be able to innovate. So I think on that front, I will...
Thanks a lot, Michela, for this very interesting feedback. I believe that there would be also questions from participants now, but we are behind the schedule. So I suggest that later on, after concluding words, we meet all together on tables, and potentially there will be some additional questions and additional time for discussion. We are coming to the next point in the agenda, and this is one additional poster presentation. It is on Market 4.0. The presentation will be given by Kosmas Alexokos from University of Patras. Just some words about Kosmas. Kosmas has graduated from the Computer Engineering and Informatics Department of University of Patras. His research area and expertise are in the fields of smart factory, digital platforms for manufacturing, digital factory, flexibility of manufacturing system, virtual reality, Internet of Things, cyber physical systems. So please, I hand over, Kosmas, to you. You can share your poster now.
Thank you, Nadja. Thanks a lot for inviting us to this session and give the opportunity for a second time in this event to present the Market 4.0, maybe, of course, today the more shorter presentation. So Market 4.0 is a project, an EU Horizon 2020 project started in 2018, and the objective is to develop and provide a marketplace to support production equipment, trading, production equipment, and services. In this type of activities, I mean, when you want to purchase, let's say, a laser cutting machine with additional peripheral devices or some robotic cell, and this type of equipment, the transactions between, there are several transactions between the different stakeholders, the suppliers, the production equipment suppliers, or the customers. This requires a lot of complex transactions, and the typical marketplaces that we are aware of usually cannot support it, because it needs several infrastructure, technologies, tools to support those directions. For example, how to validate a technical solution that fits to the customer, how to validate that you are within the budget limitations. And all this require tools, digital tools, and require data to be shared among those stakeholders. And this was the main, and this is the main, let's say, the key idea behind Market 4.0, that tries to integrate in an open environment, an open marketplace, tries to integrate both data sharing in a trusted environment, utilizing the industrial data spaces technology, and also providing the proper API, the proper ICT infrastructure for additional tools, digital tools to support the interaction between the stakeholder and the supplier and the customer. All this interaction, of course, requires some data to be exchanged, and we do have issues for how to model this data and how to agree on the data to be exchanged between the people. For that, we have defined different models describing the products and allowing the tools, the digital tools, to build services on top of those models. The project initially started by including into the marketplace organizations and products and services offered by the partners of the project. However, through the activity of 2 open calls that we have launched in the last 2 years, we had the opportunity to onboard several new companies that were outside from our consortium. And right now, in our marketplace, it's about 300 products that you can find and you can purchase, and you can have all this. It's 300 products are being offered, and we have about 30 digital tools, 30 applications that are there to facilitate this interaction between the customer and the supplier. The platform is already online, and we will have the official announcement in 2 weeks from now in one event that we participate in, Smart Manufacturing Week. It's called the event 17 to 19 of November, in which we will publicly announce the launch of the platform, and we will invite all companies to participate and use the platform for their needs. That's it from my side, and thanks again for your kind offer to allow us to present our project and our solution.
Thanks a lot, Kosmas. It was a pleasure to have you with us today. If there are any questions, please, we can discuss it later on in lounge. And I'm coming to the final point in the agenda, and these are concluding words in this workshop. And I kindly ask Hedi to start.
Thank you, Nadja. So I don't have a lot of things to do to say. Let's say that we arrived to the end of this workshop. So during this 4 days, we have deal with exciting topics discussed from different perspectives, and let's say addressing very topical aspects related to a digital transition through ontologies. So very insightful thoughts are collected. So that's why I believe that it's not the end, but the start of collaborative exploration of the workshop outcomes and the establishment of a coordinated effort towards the Ontology Commons ecosystems. So I would like to also insist on that Ontology Commons community is not only the project partners, but also all stakeholders interested in ontologies. So we are happy to have this community growing up with all of you, with all the speakers and attendees. So I really would like to thank very much all the speakers, all the attendees, the sessions chairs, the scientific committee, and especially the organizing team from Trust IT and EMMC for their great engagement to make it successful. So let's say let's keep in touch and see you very soon from my side. And I give you the floor back, Nadja, to present the final.
Thanks a lot. I see that you got a lot of hearts down.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. I know that Hedi has to leave us now, and I will have.
Thank
Bye, Hedi. Thanks a lot for saying final words from your side. I will have one short presentation, also some concluding slides from my side. I hope that you can see the screen. So I can only add to what Hedi just said. First of all, I would really like to thank to all speakers, plenary speakers, impulse speakers, also all Ontology Commons community that supported is being involved as chairs and rapporteurs and presenters. Thanks a lot to all of you, and of course to all participants who contributed in the discussions, asked questions, and discussed with us together. I would like to share with you per topic, main topic of Ontology Commons, one thought or one major message to take away. So I discussed with this person, which you see also on the slide recently, and this was feedback, main message from sessions on domain ontologies, and I will simply read and give you as a main message as outcome of 2 sessions on domain ontologies. So domain ontologies are key solution for interoperability among different areas of industrial operations and business, but making consensus of diverse views and practices of domain expert is the biggest hurdle, overcoming of which needs concerted effort of community to develop a suitable top-level ontology or industry-specific core reference ontology with pluralistic vision, user-friendly applications for ontology validation and alignment, as well as enrichment of the traditional industrial standards with ontology. Regarding the top middle level ontologies, ontology stratification together with the design patterns and fairness can enable multi-domain interoperability and reusability. However, a common approach with a clear distinction between top, mid, and domain level ontologies is yet to be identified. De facto conceptual heterogeneity at the domain expert level requires the adoption of pluralistic approaches in the design and application of ontologies, example, in the alignment. Data becomes knowledge when shared, such that others can integrate it with considerably less effort. In this request, tools for data management, sharing, and documentation play a critical role in knowledge creation and engineering. To develop and employ the use of such tools, frameworks that enable collaboration and use of appropriate infrastructure must be available. In the materials and manufacturing domains, such tools are currently used in isolation, as such frameworks are not yet established. Regarding the standards efforts are taking place around ontologies and semantic interoperability from national standards bodies, efforts that necessitates a coordinated effort to pull this together to keep track on what is going on. Through the project and our demonstrators, we will support this coordinated effort and work towards promoting and developing smart standards that are agile and market responsive. We will try and see if the results of the coordination action around ontology standards can influence direct content contribution in the next edition of the ICT rolling plan of ICT standardization. Regarding the collaboration with marketplaces, ontologies are a key asset for marketplaces as a basis for advanced functionalities, seamless operation, and there is an increased focus on interoperability within a whole ecosystem of marketplaces. The challenge being that both the marketplaces themselves and the ontologies are nascent developments that need to keep in step. Translators are key for ensuring the human in the loop and wide stakeholder integration, but currently there is a lack of people as well as training and tools that ensure the right knowledge engineering approach appropriate to the business problem is applied. Regarding the Ontology Commons ecosystems and tools, defining the clear purpose and associated use cases is key to deciding what methodology should be used and which platforms and tools are appropriate. Example, in terms of complexity, required resources for the successful deployment of an ontology and applying FAIR principle is highly desirable for the successful adoption of ontologies. Ontology engineering tools have focused during the last decades on technological aspects covering developers' needs, paying less attention to user requirements regarding, for instance, visualization, accessing and understanding the models. It is key to provide tools to lessen the ontology's entry barriers from a user perspective, considering specific community-oriented needs. Regarding the demonstrators, Ontology Commons demonstrators will showcase how ontology designed using the Ontology Commons ecosystem will help actors in software systems, in materials and manufacturing ecosystems to become interoperable and more efficient in their interlinked operations. Attention needs to be given towards identification of added value criteria and successful technology adoption approaches and ensure that user benefit is in place. Value chain data integration and digital twins can be illustrative scenarios. When it comes to FAIR principles adoption, there is no one-size-fits-all solutions. The companies can consult to materials like FAIR Cookbook at a great extent, but also need to identify the most important principles and its implementation. Example, amount of metadata that needs to be provided to fulfill the sufficient metadata criteria. Evaluation of FAIR adoption is mostly done manually, which is not scalable. Both for implementation and evaluation, training is also important, which can be achieved via strong cooperation with FAIR initiatives. So these were, I would say, takeaway messages from a number of sessions which we had this week. Of course, there was plenty in addition to what I presented now. But I asked these colleagues who were mainly chairing diverse sessions to provide one sentence, one major message that we should take away from this workshop. And of course, many more and much more will come in a detailed report that will be prepared after this workshop. I'm coming to the part where I wanted to inform external participants. I guess that those who are coming from Ontology Commons consortia are already aware of it. We had made recordings of all talks, plenary and of course impulse talks, and this is going to be available, public available. TrustIT will take care about it immediately after this workshop. We had for each session rapporteurs who took minutes during the session, and this will help, of course, to produce one compiled workshop report that will be also public available. Discussions from this workshop will contribute to the roadmap, and that was, I think, several times mentioned. Not only this event, we had several other focus workshops, interviews, webinars, and all of that will support the first draft version of Ontology Commons roadmap. I would like to invite you once again, in the case that you do not participate still, to focus areas. We will be happy to have more active members in diverse focus areas. You can very easily do it through the website, and we will be happy to collaborate more intensively with you, and we are happy to have active stakeholders in Ontology Commons community. Some statistics, thanks to TrustIT, who provided already now this information. I was just informed that we had more than 426 registrations on the ENIT regarding this workshop. Of course, not everybody was at the same time present. But throughout the whole week, participants were probably distributed in different sessions. You see also separation according to the profession, so research and academia about 45%, and industrial participants 33%. This is already very nice. And then ontologists 11, policymakers 7, and others 4. Regarding gender, we had almost 30% of female, and this is a very nice number. Then regarding the countries, you can see that mainly it was from Germany 21%, and then United Kingdom 11%, Italy, France, Austria, so mainly from these countries. And global origin of experts, we had, as expected, of course, dominantly from Europe countries, 82%, and 18% from other countries. With this, I would like also to say thanks to scientific committee that met on regular basis to plan this workshop. It's a huge work to do it, and thanks for all invested time and very, very successful and good contributions, and of course to the organizing committee, mainly to TrustIT team who did the majority of this work. Thanks to all participants for being with us for the full week. I know that this is not easy to find time to spend 4 days from the morning until the evening in one workshop, and I would really like to thank to all of you, and I hope that this is only a start, that we are just building our Ontology Commons community, and that you will take a part in the follow-up events. There will be plenty of additional events, and hopefully one day we will have the chance to do it in person as well. At least at the end of the project, we plan one additional similar workshop, a large workshop, and we hope that it will be really possible to organize it in person to this time. We are aware that it's very helpful to have it online and to some extent also easier not to travel far away for 1 week, but we are also aware that it's different and supports much more networking if we can really meet in person and discuss all these interesting topics in person. So hopefully the next horizontal workshop will be organized in a different way, I hope. So with this, I would like to conclude the official part of the workshop. So we reached the end of the global workshop, but I would like to invite participants to join lounge and on the tables we can still meet and discuss together. So this is really good opportunity of AirMeet that supports nicely networking. So thanks a lot, and I wish you pleasant day, rest of the day, and have a nice weekend, and we will give you detailed feedback on the outcomes of the workshop in the next weeks. Thanks a lot and goodbye.